Welcome to MacGyver's Workshop, where you never know what we're going to be working on next. If you're not too careful, you just might learn something.
Oh, I need coffee. Ah, sweet nectar of life.
Well, hi there, and welcome to MacGyver's Workshop, where you never know what we're going to be working on next, and if you're not too careful, you just might learn something. You know, we've got most of our parts cleaned up, and we're ready to start stacking the transmission. Already got my case bushing in here, and we're going to get started and go ahead and put our low reverse clutch in first, because that's the very bottom part in the case. The very first thing we're going to have to do is we're going to have to put our lip seals into our low reverse clutch piston here. Now this is our seal kit here. And they're nice and polite. They label everything as to where it all goes. This one's the intermediate clutch, direct and forward. They're all both the same. And pump bolt washers, low reverse, here we go. As you can see, low reverse clutch. And that has all of our seals for that. We got just a straight square cut seal that goes inside the center hole here. And you got another straight one that goes into here. Pretty straightforward. Just be gentle. And then we got one that goes around the outer periphery here. Now, these are all straight cut in this kit. Kind of helps, makes them go in a little bit easier anyway. And what I like to do, I like to kind of lube everything up with a little bit of petroleum jelly, or you can use trans gel if you have it, which is essentially the same thing, just with a little transmission fluid added to it. And I've already greased everything up inside there where this is going to go. Okay, get this down in there. Usually these fellas will just go right on in nice and easy as you please here. Let me get my little handy dandy tool here and make sure I leave enough room to get to that snap ring. Yeah, there's a much better tool out there for this, but this is the one that I had to make in a hurry, so it's all good. You'll get the job done for me. So now we have all that. Let's get our clutch stacked in there. The first thing, before I forget, drop my case bearing in there. Yep. Gotta get these in just right. Lube all this stuff up real nice. I've already got my case bearing down in there. So, all right. Make sure that's good in there and make sure it's right so your parking pawl engages on it. All right. Coat everything up there real good. I've already dipped that bearing in some tranny fluid before I put it in there. And then we'll put our rear planet in here. We had to get a new one of those, and the sun gear shell and the output shaft, because all this stuff got messed up really bad. I kind of like this new input shaft or output shaft has the brass bushing in there instead of the plastic one. I mean, it doesn't really matter, but see, this is the original that was in there is plastic and just slips down in there. Now, either one works as good as the other, but in something that can get so hot, I kind of prefer brass if I can get it. You always want to make sure you soak your frictions real good before you put a transmission together. You don't want these things starting up dry. I always go ahead and dip the steels as well. I always tell you gap goes here because that's where your parking pawl is. All right. Now we got our rear sprag here. And next, our little snap ring goes in here. You always make sure your anti-clunk spring is in there good, and that your sprag is down below the ring groove. So what we want to do, we want to start our spring, our retainer spring, right on the side of that anti-clunk spring, because what will happen is it'll prevent the spring from seating all the way. And then you're going to have your low reverse clutch pop out. And that's not going to be good. And make sure that spring's seated in that groove all the way around. Click. How about that, sports fans? So that's your low reverse assembly. Let's get our Planetary and all that good stuff in there. And as I'd mentioned previously, we've got all the new bushings and all that good stuff. we will definitely want to take care of this one. Get our new bushing in there. We can do is knock it out of here with a punch. See, that's our old one. Put that in the trash box there. Get our nice spiffy new one in here. Get these bushings set straight in here. Oh yeah. Let's lube that puppy up real nice. Throw some Joy Jelly to this one too. Now we can drop our sun gear in. How about that? Ain't that pretty? Then our new Planet goes on here. It's got its own little bearing built in. Get our snap ring down in here. Now, if you recall, you couldn't even see this snap ring back when I was taking this thing apart, because this was so mashed, spread out and mushroomed, or whatever you want to call it. And I mean, it was a mess. There we go. Right. And there you go. Got another thrust washer here. And I've changed all these out for metal. As they all had there's a lot of plastic ones in here. And you know, I'm sure it's okay. I mean, it lasted since 1982. I suppose I can't fault it too much. But you know, I just think that metal washers are just going to do better. Get that down on there. And that goes there. It's like a big jigsaw puzzle, isn't it? That's what it is. Now you see, the input shaft has a hole in the middle of it. And that's where your lube oil goes to the back of the transmission. And it sits down in there like that, but it's not supposed to be pressed hard against it and grinding. You know, it's held off to the proper clearance by this thrust washer. And then your end play allows everything to just kind of move around a little bit to expand and contract. So now we're going to have to load up our input drum, put our clutch together and all that good stuff. Now it's time to set up our input or forward clutch piston. Input and the direct clutch, which is third gear, are all the same, the same seals. Now, what we got to do, we want to be careful and make sure we put our rings in the right way, because if you don't, then you're going to have some problems. So looking down from the top, the center ring goes in with the lip facing down. We have that. We got our biggie ring here, and it's going to go with the lip facing down. Use your feeler gauge to kind of go around and poke that seal down in there. Just don't want to nick it or cut it. And then go around the outside periphery as well. While you all the while applying a very light pressure. There she goes. Ain't that pretty? Now she's all down in there, just the way we want it. Okay. Now we get to do our little clutch tool thing again. That's always fun, isn't it? Oh yeah. I'm doing this before I put the input shaft in there because it just makes it a whole lot easier. And once I get that in there, then we'll press the input shaft in. Let's run this up in here and compress that clutch. All right, now we can stack this clutch. Okay. The important thing to remember on this input clutch is you really want to always put your wavy spring in there, because you can always tweak your pressures and all to set your engagement. If you take that wave out of there, your options are kind of limited. Now, if you got a race car or something and you don't care, that's fine. And you always want to make sure too, when you put these clutches together, that you you check your clearances in there, because clearances are too tight, well, in this case, it'll make the the car creep forward in gear until the clutches wear down. And if you got them too much, then you'll have a delayed engagement going into drive. That's not good. Okay. Always go around and make sure your snap rings are all seated. It's always important. Always important to do. And of course, make sure we got plenty of goob on everything. And then it's time to press our input shaft in there. We'll have to go do that over on the press, so we'll be back in a minute. All right, so I've got my input shaft pressed into the drum here. Now we will go ahead and get this drum installed. Always helps if you can kind of line the teeth up on your clutch discs here. And as I'd said, you want to make sure you check your clearances. Okay, and we're good on this one. Usually 60, 70 thousandths is good, or you can take it down to 40. Now, it's time for the direct drum. Now this one, of course, takes the same set of rings, and the only difference with this one is it has an extra third ring here. That's the one I was thinking of a bit ago. We've got to replace our bushing here first. Make sure I got the right dang it here. Real slick with this tranny fluid and assembly goob everywhere. Knock this ring out of here. The thing about this particular bushing is most of them came with a narrow bushing, and I'm going to go back with a wide one. It's a lot stronger, a lot better. I'll show you what I'm talking about here. You can see the difference there. The only trick is you got to make sure you drive this in far enough, because you've got a bearing with a lip on it, and you have to have that bushing driven down in there far enough so it doesn't hold that bearing up. Very important. Alright, now when we go to put this, put these rings, sealing rings on this piston, there's one extra one that goes down in the drum here. Right, now when you're putting this third seal in here, you always want to make sure the lip is pointing up. Okay, and then these two seals are going to be pointing down. Yeah. It's alright. I'd rather be careful than quick any day of the week. Here we go. Now it is time to go ahead and put our clutches in here. We're going to have a wave here on this one. This is third gear. Usually don't have any kind of real heavy torque on you in third gear anyway, so you're good. And we'll tighten the shift up just a little bit on this one too. Make it shift nice for him. Now I was hoping to upgrade this to a 5 clutch drum, but unfortunately the supplier was out of them. And I don't have a lathe that I can use to turn that piston down yet, but that's okay. I mean, 4 clutches for third gear is fine. This thing's run since 1982 and has probably got like 1 billion miles on it, but God knows what kind of abuse, and it lived. So I mean, I ran a 4 clutch drum in my one ton that I drove, and I didn't have no trouble at all out of it. And they had, you know, major shift modifications and pulled heavy trailers with it and everything. I never had a lot of trouble out of it. It lasted, God knows, forever. So, okie dokie. Now we've got our thing here. Let's see what we got. Make sure I got the right bearing in here. There we go. Really, the best way to do this, like so. Go. That way you know she's hitting down there where she needs to be. There we go. And make sure your ears are lined up on that sun gear shell there. That's important. Now, let's get our band in here. Get her lined up in there like so. And that's all nice and good. Now, let me get these bushings swapped out of here, out of this pump. Now, we got all our bushings in our pump. We're all happy there. Now it's time to put our intermediate clutch piston in. And we're going to, we've got our band clamp around the pump to line everything up. And let's go ahead and get into our intermediate clutch piston seals here. Yeah, big one goes around the outside here. And one that goes around the inside. And you want your seals both pointing the same way. Otherwise you won't have second gear. That would suck. And again, you always want to be careful when you're putting these in. Sometimes you can finagle them in, and then sometimes you just need to get out your feeler gauges and run it in that way. We got our clutch piston back in there finally. It's all in the technique. Now once you do that, then you can put your spring in here, and that's what these bolts here are actually what holds the two halves of the pump together. And you see how I got this hose clamp around here to have it lined up. Now we just snug these down, and then we'll torque them with a torque wrench. We can take our clamp off of here, put our oil pump O-ring on here. It always helps to kind of lube it up a little bit too before you put it in the transmission. Just help it kind of slide in there a little nicer and easier. We get our oil pump gasket here. I always like to lay it in here like so and make sure everything's nice and spiffy. All right, now we'll put our sealing rings on here. Gotta have those. I got the one down here already. Yeah. Lock these rings together. Okay. We'll make sure the ends of those rings lock together real good. We got our two white ones that go up here at the top, smaller ones. What's important to remember is on this intermediate clutch, always put the wavy plate in. Lots of guys, you know, they'll say they want to leave it out because they give them a harder shift, but you don't break parts that way. Get my PUBG frying pan or skillet in here. Yeah, but you never have to worry about needing extra clutches or anything on this intermediate because these clutches are so huge. They have an immense amount of grip. And you will never slip second gear unless you just totally blew the clutch seals out of the piston. And when you make these modifications to the valve body, you know, it's going to have a real nice, tight, quick second gear. I mean, you can make it shift as hard as you want without ever worrying about a shift kit. All right, I'm going to put that wavy spring down in there. Lay my oil pump gasket down in here. Then we'll drop the pump in there and check it for end play. I've already put all new bushings in here and the new front pump seal. So unfortunately, my second camera battery went dead again on me. But that's okay. We'll continue on with one camera. And we got our sealing washers underneath the bolts here. Those are important to remember. So your pump doesn't leak up front here. So I took the thing off the stand here and I got it up here. The stack is all done. Now I'm starting to work on the valve body. Since I don't have a decent battery on my other camera, maybe I can do some video with my phone. How's that? So we'll try that. The first thing you do is you take this check ball and this check ball and you leave it out. And then this one stays in. That's for the lock-up torque converter. And then I think it's, see, one of them's governor and one's reverse, I believe. And they have to be there, so you want to leave those. But what those other two check balls do are for the shift valves, for 1 to 2 and 2 to 3. And then what you do, and I did take a picture for this one because I've already done it. Now I'm going to show you a picture of the separator plate with the there's two holes that control the 1, 2 and the 2, 3 shift. And what you do is you drill those out to 125, 130 thousandths. That firms up the shift real good. Now I'm going to show you with the one picture. You can see the size of the holes as they were, and then there's 1 and there's 2. So I took those up to about 135 thousandths. So she'll have a good firm shift to her. The other thing that I did was on the 1-2 shift accumulator. I left the spring in, but what I did was I reduced its travel. So the accumulator piston will only travel about half the distance that it normally did against the stock spring. And then what that's going to do is that's going to reduce the amount of time it takes for the 1-2 shift to happen. And if you recall what I was saying before, you know, yeah, it's nice to bump your line pressure up just a skosh and make it shift a little harder, but the real object is to make it shift quicker. So that's what we've done with the 1-2 accumulator. And then basically doing the same thing with the 2-3 here in the valve body. You know, we'll still have the spring in there because you still want it to function. I think doing it this way is a lot smoother, and but yet it's still a lot quicker. Now it's just a matter of me buttoning all this stuff up here, and we'll be getting going here. I got all my bolts in and everything, and I'm just gonna gently snug all my bolts down. And I'll go over and torque them with a torque wrench. You want to make sure that you don't, honk down on these valve body bolts. They don't need to be that tight. And when you actually torque them to spec, you'd be surprised at how little it feels that you're tightening it. You want to go about 90, 100 inch-pounds on these. And you'd swear to yourself, it's like, man, that don't feel tight enough. But don't succumb to the temptation and start wrenching down on these things, because you pull a thread out of that case, then you're going to have to drill it and helicoil it and all that. You don't want that aggravation. Now I'm going to put my kick down linkage back in here. There we go. And make sure your kick down valve, one part, half of it's a two-step. Half of it's nice and easy, and then it gets harder. And I got all my wiring done here, nice and pretty. And put the filter on here. And I changed out those rubber check balls for the good steel ones. I just prefer them. All right, now because I don't like getting dirty, and I'm sure the owner of the vehicle, doesn't either, we're going to put a drain plug in this pan. I never understood why GM did this, but they put a place for the drain plug, but I think only like Pontiacs and Buicks and the upline models got it. It's got the drain plug, so I don't know. But so what we're going to do is we're going to take and drill our hole in the pan, and then we're going to run this in and snug it up real good. Then I'm going to take it over there and I'm going to tack weld this nut on the back side of the pan, and we don't have to worry about sealing on the side that the nut is on the inside, because this is going to have a copper washer that's going to seal around the outside of the pan. So we don't have to worry about it leaking or nothing. Oh yeah, I neglected to mention, what I did is I drilled down through the center of this bolt and embedded a really strong neo magnet, and then peened over the end of the hole. So that way you ain't got to worry about having a magnet in the pan or nothing. The drain plug will catch it. And that's your drain plug, and it'll drain pretty much most of it out. That way, when you go to drop the pan, you don't get showered in transmission fluid. Now this had a rubber gasket on it when I took it apart, and and I kind of like the old rubber gaskets, but these cork ones are just the best if you put them on right. You just put them on dry, and the trick is you don't over tighten them. It's kind of like the valve body. They don't need a lot of torque, and as long as your threads are good and everything's nice and tidy and clean, these things will go on there and they will not leak. She is ready to stab back in the truck, and of course it's a bit late in the day for me, and it's about supper time, so I'm gonna call it, and I'll be out here bright and early tomorrow morning and get this thing stabbed back in there, and hopefully the next thing you see is us taking it for a test drive. So see you then. Let's do a standing start here. Okay. Yeah, baby, that's what I'm talking about. Nice, sharp, quick 1 to 2, 2 to 3. Not terribly obnoxious, but it's just right. It's shifting a little high at 3/4 throttle. I still got to tweak the modulator. I turned it in 2 turns before I ever, when I put it in the transmission, but that's a little much, so I'm gonna have to back it off a bit. Nice sharp downshift. Nice sharp back into third. That's what we want. We'll do one more stand and start and feel that good second gear. Passing gear. Oh yeah, I'm happy with it. Appreciate y'all watching, following us through our little adventure here. And you like what you see, please subscribe. And don't forget to ring the little bell icon thing there so you'll be notified when we put up new videos. And as always, feel free to comment, and I read all of them. Sometimes it takes me a bit to reply, but I read them. And also, if you want to reach me offline, you can get me at MacGyversWorkshop@gmail.com, and check out our website, www.MacGyversWorkshop.net, and check us out on Facebook. And like us and check us out there. And again, thank y'all for watching, and we will see you next time.